The massive space station Concordia floated in the darkness between 12 different star systems. Its metal walls gleamed under the light of distant suns. Inside the station, beings from across the galaxy walked through long corridors toward the main meeting hall. Today would mark the beginning of the most important peace talks in galactic history. Ambassador Sarah Chun stepped off the human transport ship and looked around the docking bay. Her boots made soft clicking sounds on the metal floor. Behind her, 6 human soldiers followed in a straight line. Their faces were calm, but their eyes moved constantly, watching everything around them. Chun wore a simple blue diplomatic uniform. The soldiers wore something very different. Their armor looked old and basic compared to what other species brought to the station. Thick ceramic plates covered their chests and backs. Metal pieces protected their arms and legs. Heavy fabric connected all the pieces together. On their heads sat helmets that looked like they came from an ancient war. Other beings in the docking bay stopped and stared. Some pointed at the humans. Others made sounds that their universal translators turned into laughter. A tall, thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms walked up to Chun. "I am Trade Minister Velinux of the Andorian Republic," it said through its translator device. "Are those your bodyguards?" The creature looked at the human soldiers. "Their protection gear seems very old." Chun smiled politely. "Yes, these are our security personnel. Colonel Rivera leads them." She pointed to a man with gray hair and serious eyes. "Our armor has served us well for many years." Valenix tilted its head. "I see. Well, I suppose different species have different DAPE abilities." The creature walked away, making soft sounds that the translator did not pick up. More alien delegations filled the docking bay. The Zephyrian military group arrived next. Their leader, General Crickstall, stood 8 feet tall. His body was covered in crystal-like skin that glowed with inner light. Energy fields danced around his arms and chest. When weapons fire hit those fields, they would simply disappear into nothing. Crickstall saw the humans and stopped walking. His crystal face twisted into what might have been a smile. "Look at this," he said to his officers. The humans brought museum pieces to a diplomatic meeting. His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. More beings gathered around to look. The insect-like creatures from the hive mind wore armor that changed shape as they moved. It grew thicker where attacks might come from and thinner where they needed to move quickly. Biocomputers in their shells calculated the best protection for every second of every day. A group of reptile people from the Saurian Empire watched the humans with yellow eyes. Their armor was invisible until something tried to hurt them. Then bright force fields would appear and push attacks away. Their leader, Commander Zask, had once stopped a nuclear explosion with just his personal shield. "Ceramic plates and cloth?" Zask said, his long tongue flicking out. "How did these creatures even reach the stars?" The Quantum Collective sent 3 representatives who looked like humans but moved in strange ways. Sometimes they seemed solid. Other times, light passed right through them. Their phase shift technology let them exist in several dimensions at once. No physical attack could touch them when they activated their quantum armor. Even the strangest group found the humans amusing. The Nebulae Collective was made up of gas creatures who lived inside special suits. Their containers pulsed with energy barriers that could stop anything from bullets to black holes. They communicated by changing the colors of their gas bodies. "Such primitive materials," one of them said, its gas shifting from blue to green. "We have not seen ceramic armor since our Stone Age." Colonel Rivera stood with his 5 soldiers and listened to every word. His face showed no emotion, but his men knew that look. Sergeant Martinez whispered, "They sure think they know everything, sir." "Let them think what they want," Rivera replied. Quietly, "We know what works." A floating robot approached the human group. It belonged to the Synthetic Collective, beings who had uploaded their minds into machines thousands of years ago. The robot's body was made of liquid metal that could become any shape needed. Energy weapons could not damage something that simply flowed around attacks. Organic beings still using physical armor, the robot said in a voice like grinding gears. How ... nostalgic. More laughter came from the growing crowd. Chun maintained her diplomatic smile, but inside she felt frustrated. These beings judged humans without knowing anything about their history or experience. A new sound filled the docking bay. Heavy footsteps announced the arrival of the Titanium Brotherhood. These were beings who had replaced most of their bodies with metal parts. Their leader, General Ironheart, was more machine than living creature. His chest was a solid block of super-strong alloy. His arms could punch through spaceship hulls. Ironheart looked at the human soldiers and laughed. The sound came out like grinding metal. Soft materials protecting soft bodies, he said. My kind moved beyond such weaknesses long ago. Chen decided she had heard enough comments. Perhaps, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, we should focus on why we are here. These peace talks could end wars that have lasted for centuries. Of course, General Crystal said, his crystal body still glowing with amusement. But surely you understand our ... curiosity. Your species seems so far behind the rest of us in defensive technology. Different does not mean behind, Chung replied. Perhaps not, said Commander Zask. But those ceramic plates would not last 1 second against a Saurian plasma rifle. Or a hive mind bioacid spray, added an insect creature. Or any serious weapon from the last 1,000 years, General Ironheart concluded. Colonel Rivera stepped forward. His movement was smooth and controlled. With respect, he said, our equipment has been tested many times. Against what? Crystal asked. Rocks? Sticks? The crowd of aliens laughed again. Some pulled out recording devices to capture images of the primitive human armor. These pictures would provide entertainment for years to come. Our armor has been tested against everything that has tried to kill us, Rivera said calmly. And we are still here. This statement caused more laughter. How could such basic protection work against advanced galactic weapons? A new voice joined the conversation. The humans speak truth, but perhaps not the truth they think they speak. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. A figure in black robes stood near the entrance to the docking bay. No one had seen it arrive. The creature inside the robes was impossible to see clearly, as if shadows moved where its face should be. The Void Syndicate sends a representative? Chun asked, surprised. We send an observer, the figure said. To watch the foolish make peace while the strong prepare for war. General Crystal's crystals glowed brighter. The Syndicate was invited to these talks. Why do you choose to remain outside? Peace is weakness, the figure replied. War makes species strong. Your talks will fail, and when they do, we will be ready. The shadow figure disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. Uncomfortable silence filled the docking bay. Well, Chun said, breaking the quiet, that was disturbing. Shall we proceed to the meeting hall? The various delegations began moving toward the main part of the station. As they walked, conversations continued about human armor. Bets were placed on how quickly it would fail under different types of attacks. Some aliens calculated exact time measurements down to fractions of seconds. Colonel Rivera and his soldiers walked behind. Ambassador Chun, they listened to every comment and remembered every face that showed amusement. These beings thought they knew everything about warfare and protection. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The group entered a massive hall, filled with curved tables arranged in a circle. Each delegation had its own section with chairs designed for their particular body types. Holographic displays showed star maps and treaty documents. At the center of the room stood a podium, where speakers would address all 12 species. The talks would begin in 1 hour, giving everyone time to settle in and prepare. As the humans took their seats, the mockery continued around them. But Chun noticed something else. Colonel Rivera and his soldiers were not sitting randomly. They had positioned themselves to watch all entrances and exits. Their primitive armor did not stop them from moving quickly and efficiently. Perhaps, she thought, there was more to human military thinking than their critics realized. The first day of peace talks began at dawn, station time. Ambassador Chun walked to the central podium with a datapad in her hand. Around the circular hall, representatives from 12 different species watched her through various types of eyes. Some glowed, others moved independently, and a few existed in spectrums humans could not see without special equipment. We gather here today to end conflicts that have torn apart this galaxy for over 300 years, Chun began. Her voice carried clearly through the translation systems. Billions have died, entire star systems have been destroyed. Whole species have been driven from their home worlds. The hall remained quiet as she spoke. Even the beings who had mocked human armor the day before listened carefully to her words. But we are not here to discuss the past, Chun continued. We are here to build a future where our children can live without fear of war. The first major issue came from the Zephyrian Empire and the Saurian Republic. Both species claimed ownership of the Nexus star system, a region rich in rare crystals needed for faster-than-light travel. The argument had been going on for 50 years and had cost millions of lives. General Crickstal stood up, his crystal body casting rainbow patterns on the walls. The Nexus system belongs to the Zephyrian people. We discovered it first. We mapped its planets. We established the first colonies. Commander Zask rose from his chair, his reptilian features twisted in anger. Lies. Saurian ships reached Nexus 7 years before any Zephyrian vessel. Your people attacked our peaceful settlers and stole our rightful territory. The two military leaders glared at each other across the hall. Energy began building around Crickstal's crystal skin. Zask's claws extended and his eyes glowed brighter. For a moment, it looked like the peace talks might end in violence before they really began. Chun stepped between them. Even though she was much smaller than either alien leader, what if both species could benefit from the Nexus system without fighting over it? Impossible, Crickstal said. Only one government can control a star system. Why? Chun asked. On Earth, we have something called international waters. No single country owns them, but all countries can use them safely. What if we created something similar for the Nexus system? The idea was new to both species. They had always thought in terms of complete control or complete loss. The concept of shared space was strange to them. Chun pulled up a holographic display showing the Nexus system. The Zephyrians could mine crystals from the 3 inner planets. The Saurians could establish colonies on the 4 outer worlds. The space stations and shipping lanes could be managed jointly by both species. Trade Minister Valinox from the Andorian Republic leaned forward with interest. This shared control concept. It could work for other disputed territories as well. Over the next 6 hours, the human delegation presented detailed plans for the Nexus system arrangement. They had charts showing mining quotas, trade agreements, and security responsibilities. Every question from the Zephyrians and Saurians received a complete answer. By the end of the first day, both species had agreed to consider the shared control proposal. It was more progress than anyone had expected so soon. During the dinner break, conversations in the station's dining halls focused on human diplomatic skills. The same beings who had laughed at human armor now spoke with respect about human ideas. They think differently than we do, observed a quantum collective representative. We see problems as binary, win or lose. They see possibilities we never considered. General Ironheart from the Titanium Brotherhood sat at a table with other military leaders. Their diplomats are clever, he admitted. But their soldiers still look like they came from a museum. Colonel Rivera and his team ate their meal at a separate table. They could hear the comments about their equipment, but they paid no attention. Instead, they discussed security arrangements for the next day. I don't like how quiet the Void Syndicate has been, Sergeant Martinez said quietly. One observer yesterday, then nothing. They're planning something, agreed Corporal Thompson. A young woman with sharp eyes. Question is what and when. Rivera nodded. Station security is good, but it's designed for normal diplomatic protection. The Void Syndicate doesn't follow normal rules. The second day brought new challenges. The Hive Mind Collective and the Nebulae Collective had been at war for over a century. The insect beings needed solid planets to build their massive hive structures. The gas creatures preferred empty space where they could float freely without interference. The problem seemed impossible to solve. How could species with completely different needs share the same regions of space? Chun stood before both delegations with another surprising proposal. What if the hive mind built their colonies underground? They could have entire planets to themselves without affecting the space above the surface. The lead hive mind drone made clicking sounds that translated as doubt. Underground construction requires different techniques. Our current methods work best on surface locations, then we adapt, Chun replied. Humans have built cities underground, underwater, and in the empty space between planets. We can share our construction knowledge with you. The Nebulae Collective representative pulsed, from red to blue, indicating interest. The space creatures would remain untouched. Our movements would not disturb the insect colonies below. But what do we gain from this arrangement? The hive mind drone asked. Chun smiled. Protection. Underground cities are much harder to attack than surface colonies. The Nebulae Collective could serve as an early warning system for approaching threats. In exchange, the hive mind could provide repair services for damaged nebulae equipment. This mutual defense and assistance idea was revolutionary. Most galactic species fought their wars alone, never trusting others enough to work together. The human concept of cooperation for mutual benefit opened new possibilities. The third day focused on trade, disputes between the Synthetic Collective and the Andorian Republic. The robot beings produced advanced technology but needed rare biological materials for their research. The Andorians had those materials but wanted access to synthetic technology. Previous negotiations had failed because each side wanted to maintain advantages over the other. Trust was impossible when both groups feared being destroyed by their trading partners. Chun proposed something called gradual integration. Instead of immediate full trade, both species would start with small exchanges. Success at each level would lead to expanded cooperation. If problems developed, either side could step back without losing everything. We begin with simple trades, Chun explained. Synthetic Collective shares basic computer designs. Andorian Republic provides common biological samples. After 6 months, if both sides are satisfied, we move to more advanced exchanges. The robot representative, its liquid metal body constantly shifting shape, processed this information quickly. This reduces risk while allowing for long-term benefits. It is ... logical. Trade Minister Vilinux agreed. My people could accept this approach. We would not risk our most valuable secrets, but we could still gain benefits from cooperation. By the end of the third day, 7 different conflicts had been addressed with human diplomatic solutions. The other species began to see patterns in human thinking. Where aliens saw only competition, humans found ways to create cooperation. Where others demanded total victory, humans built systems where everyone could win something. Evening conversations throughout the station had changed completely. Instead of mocking human armor, aliens discussed human ideas. Some delegations sent private messages to their home governments, requesting permission to explore even broader cooperation with Earth, but not everyone was pleased with the progress being made. In the darker sections of the station, security cameras stopped working for brief periods. Motion sensors recorded nothing, but sensitive beings sometimes felt they were being watched by hostile eyes. The Void Syndicate was studying the peace talks very carefully. Colonel Rivera increased his security patrols. His soldiers moved through the station in pairs, checking areas where the monitoring systems had experienced problems. They found nothing obvious, but their training told them that danger was growing closer. Sir, Sergeant Martinez reported during a late-night security briefing. We've detected 17 separate system failures in the past 3 days. All of them lasted less than 5 minutes. All of them happened in different sections of the station. Someone is mapping our defenses, Rivera concluded. They're learning how to move through the station without being detected. Should we warn Ambassador Chun? Asked Corporal Thompson. Rivera considered this carefully. Not yet. She needs to focus on the negotiations. But we increase our readiness level, full armor and weapons at all times. And we start our own reconnaissance. What kind of reconnaissance, sir? The kind that doesn't show up on sensors, Rivera replied. We're going to find out what the Void Syndicate is really planning. As the fourth day of peace talks began, both sides of a deadly game were preparing their next moves. Above, diplomats worked to build a peaceful future for the galaxy. Below, soldiers prepared for a war that could destroy everything they had accomplished. The final day of peace talks arrived with excitement filling the air throughout Concordia Station. Representatives from all 12 species gathered in the main hall earlier than usual. Today they would sign the peace agreements that could end centuries of war across the galaxy. Ambassador Chun stood at the central podium, holding the final draft of the treaty documents. The papers contained solutions to conflicts that had seemed impossible to solve just 4 days earlier. Shared territories, mutual defense agreements, and trade partnerships would replace the warfare that had destroyed so many worlds. Today marks a new beginning for our galaxy, Chun announced to the assembled delegates. Future generations will remember this day as the moment when 12 species chose cooperation over conflict. General Krikstal rose from his seat, his crystal body glowing with what appeared to be satisfaction. The Zephyrian Empire acknowledges the wisdom in these agreements. We are prepared to sign the treaty? Commander Zask nodded his reptilian head. In agreement, the Saurian Republic also accepts these terms. The shared control of disputed territories benefits all parties involved. One by one, each delegation expressed their approval. The insect-like hive mind drones clicked their approval. In harmony. The gaseous nebulae collective pulsed with colors that indicated happiness. Even the robot representatives from the synthetic collective agreed that the logical benefits outweighed any concerns. In the station's security office, Colonel Rivera watched the proceedings through multiple camera feeds. His soldiers were positioned throughout the station, all wearing their much-criticized ceramic armor and carrying traditional kinetic weapons. Something felt wrong to Rivera, though he could not identify exactly what bothered him. All systems showing normal, sir, reported Sergeant Martinez from her monitoring station. No unusual activity detected anywhere on the station. That's what worries me, Rivera replied quietly. The Void Syndicate has been too quiet. They oppose everything we've accomplished here, but we haven't seen them since that first day. Corporal Thompson checked her weapon for the third time in 10 minutes. Maybe they decided the peace talks were going to succeed no matter what they did. The Void Syndicate doesn't give up that easily, Rivera said. They believe war makes species strong and peace makes them weak. They won't let this treaty be signed without a fight. Back in the main hall, the signing ceremony was beginning. Each species had developed their own traditional methods for marking important agreements. The Zephyrians used energy patterns carved into crystal tablets. The Saurians pressed their claws into metal plates. The Quantum Collective signed their names across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Chun watched as each delegation added their agreement to the historic documents. In a few more minutes, the galaxy would officially be at peace for the first time in over 3 centuries. The work of the past 4 days had exceeded everyone's hopes. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting activated immediately, casting strange shadows throughout the hall. But instead of the normal white glow, the backup lights flickered with an ominous red color. Alert sirens began wailing throughout the station. What's happening? Called out Trade Minister Velinux, his forearms reaching for weapons that weren't there. Chun tried to activate her communication device to contact station security. The device was completely dead. Around the hall, other delegates discovered that their equipment had also stopped working. EMP attack, General Ironheart announced, his mechanical voice still functioning because his systems were hardened against electromagnetic pulses. Someone has used electromagnetic pulse weapons to disable our technology. Suddenly, figures in black armor began materializing throughout the hall. They appeared out of nowhere, as if the empty air had suddenly become solid. Advanced teleportation technology brought them directly past all. Of the station's defenses, the figures wore armor that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Their weapons glowed with energy that hurt to look at directly. Each attacker moved with mechanical precision, taking positions to control all exits from the hall. "Nobody move," commanded a voice that came from the largest of the black-armored figures. "You are now prisoners of the Void Syndicate." The delegates looked around in panic. Their advanced defensive systems were completely useless. General Crystal tried to activate his crystal energy shields, but nothing happened. The EMP attack had fried the delicate electronics that controlled his protection. Commander Zask attempted to turn on his force field generators. The devices that had once stopped nuclear weapons were now dead metal attached to his uniform. His claws and natural armor were his only remaining defenses. The Quantum Collective representatives tried to phase shift into other dimensions, but their quantum processors had been destroyed by the electromagnetic pulse. They remained solid and vulnerable in normal space, one by one. The other species discovered that their technological advantages had been turned into weaknesses. The hive mind's bioadaptive armor had been disrupted by targeted biological agents, released with the EMP attack. The Nebulae Collective's energy barriers flickered and died as their power sources failed. "Your advanced technologies have made you weak," announced the Void Syndicate leader. His voice came through speakers built into his helmet. "You have forgotten how to fight without your machines and energy fields." The leader removed his helmet, revealing a face that was half flesh and half mechanical components. Cables and circuits replaced one eye and most of his jaw. His name was Nexus 7, and he had been augmented with technology stolen from every major species in the galaxy. "I am disappointed," Nexus 7 said, looking around at the helpless delegates. The great military leaders of 12 species, defeated in less than 1 minute. "You have become soft and dependent on your toys." Chun stepped forward, her hands raised to show she was not armed. "What do you want from us?" "You will serve as hostages," Nexus 7 replied. "Your governments will disband their peace agreements and return to proper warfare. War makes species strong. Peace makes them food for predators." "You cannot stop peace with violence," Chun said firmly. "The agreements we have made benefit everyone. Even your own people would gain from ending these wars." Nexus 7 laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "My people gain strength from conflict. We have evolved through constant warfare to become the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Your peace would make us weak like the rest of you." The Void Syndicate soldiers began herding the delegates toward one corner of the hall. Their weapons were designed specifically to defeat every known type of galactic armor and shielding. Energy disruptors that overloaded force fields, bioweapons that attacked living armor, quantum scramblers that prevented phase shifting, but as the attackers moved through the hall, they made a discovery that confused them. The human soldiers were still standing. Their ceramic armor showed no signs of damage from the EMP attack. Their weapons remained functional. "Impossible," said one of the Void Syndicate soldiers. "The electromagnetic pulse should have disabled all technology in this area." Colonel Rivera stepped out from behind a decorative pillar where he had taken cover. His rifle was pointed directly at the nearest attacker. "Our gear doesn't have any electronics to disable." Sergeant Martinez appeared from another position, her weapon trained on a different target. "Ceramic plates and metal alloys don't care about electromagnetic pulses." One by one, the other human soldiers revealed their positions throughout the hall. They had used the confusion of the attack to spread out and find cover. Their primitive equipment had given them a huge advantage that no one had expected. Nexus-7 stared at the humans with surprise and growing anger. "Your weapons are thousands of years old. They cannot harm our advanced armor." "Let's find out," Rivera said calmly. The colonel fired his rifle at the closest Void Syndicate soldier. The kinetic projectile struck the enemy's chest plate and punched completely through the advanced armor. The soldier collapsed immediately. "Kinetic energy weapons," Rivera explained to the shocked delegates. "Sometimes the oldest solutions work better than the newest ones." The Void Syndicate had prepared for every possible threat except the one they considered most primitive. Their armor was designed to stop energy weapons, deflect plasma bolts, and absorb exotic particle beams. But simple bullets moving at high velocity went through their defenses like they were made of paper. "Kill the humans!" Nexus 7 shouted to his remaining soldiers. The battle for Concordia Station was about to begin, and the beings who had been mocked for their old-fashioned armor were now the only hope for galactic peace. The sound of gunfire echoed through the main hall as Colonel Rivera's soldiers engaged the Void Syndicate attackers. The human weapons, which had been mocked as primitive just days before, now proved their deadly effectiveness against advanced alien armor. Sergeant Martinez moved quickly across the hall, her ceramic armor absorbing energy blasts that would have killed anyone wearing electronic protection. A Void Syndicate soldier aimed a plasma weapon at her, confident that his advanced technology would cut through her old-fashioned defense. The plasma bolt struck her chest plate and spread across the ceramic surface like water hitting a rock. The energy dispersed harmlessly while Martinez returned fire with her kinetic rifle. Her bullet punched through the enemy's armor and dropped him instantly. "How is this possible?" Nexus 7 demanded, watching his elite soldiers fall to weapons that belonged in a museum. "Your projectile weapons cannot defeat our shields." "What shields?" asked Corporal Thompson as she flanked another attacker. Her armor showed burn marks from multiple energy hits, but she moved without any sign of injury. "Your gear is designed to stop energy weapons. Bullets don't care about energy fields." The Void Syndicate had made a critical error in their planning. They had studied every major galactic species and prepared countermeasures for all their advanced technologies. Force field generators, quantum barriers, bioadaptive armor, phase shift systems. They had weapons designed to defeat all of these sophisticated defenses, but they had completely ignored human equipment because it seemed too primitive to be worth considering. Their armor could stop plasma cannons and particle beams, but simple metal bullets traveling at high speed went through it like it was made of thin cloth. Colonel Rivera directed his team with hand signals, a communication method that worked perfectly when all electronic systems had been disabled. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans coordinated their movements without any technology at all. "Position 3, covering fire," Rivera called out. Corporal Johnson immediately began shooting at enemy positions to keep them pinned down, while his teammates moved to better locations. "Position 1, flanking maneuver," Rivera continued. Private Walsh moved around the side of the hall, using decorative pillars for cover. Her ceramic armor made almost no noise as she positioned herself behind the enemy line. The Void Syndicate soldiers began to panic. Their advanced weapons were designed for specific types of targets, and the humans did not fit any of their programmed attack patterns. Energy disruptors that should have overloaded armor systems had no effect on ceramic plates and metal alloys. Bioweapons designed to attack living armor were useless against materials that had never been alive. "Sir, their gear doesn't make sense," one of the attackers reported to Nexus 7. "No electronics to disrupt. No energy fields to overload, no biological components to poison. How do we fight equipment that has no advanced systems to attack?" "Use overwhelming firepower," Nexus 7 ordered. "If we cannot disable their armor, we will destroy it through brute force." 3 Void Syndicate soldiers focused their weapons on Sergeant Martinez. Plasma bolts, particle beams, and quantum disruptors all struck her position at the same time. The concentrated attack created a brilliant explosion that filled that section of the hall with blinding light. When the light faded, Martinez was still standing. Her armor showed new burn marks and several ceramic plates had cracked, but she remained combat effective. The overlapping design of her protection had spread the damage across multiple surfaces, preventing any single hit from penetrating to her body. "Impossible," breathed General Crystal, who was watching the battle from where the delegates had taken cover. His own crystal armor lay in pieces around him, destroyed by the EMP attack. "She absorbed more firepower than my best shields could." "Have stopped." Martinez reloaded her weapon and returned fire. Her bullets found their targets with mechanical precision, dropping 2 more Void Syndicate soldiers. The third attacker tried to retreat, but Private Walsh was waiting behind him with her rifle ready. Nexus 7 realized that his perfect plan was falling apart. The electromagnetic pulse that had disabled all galactic technology had no effect on human equipment. The specialized weapons designed to defeat advanced armor were useless against simple materials. His elite soldiers, trained to fight wars with energy weapons and exotic technologies, did not know how to combat enemies who relied on basic kinetic force. "Fall back to secondary positions," he ordered his remaining troops. "We will regroup and try different tactics." But Colonel Rivera had anticipated this move. His soldiers had been studying the hall's layout since their arrival 4 days ago. They knew every entrance, exit, and hiding place better than the attackers did. "Thompson, cover the north exit," Rivera commanded. Martinez, watch the east passage. "Johnson, prevent retreat through the south corridor." The human soldiers moved to block all escape routes. The Void Syndicate found themselves trapped in the same hall where they had expected to capture helpless hostages. "Your armor may protect you," Nexus 7 called out to the humans, "but you are outnumbered. We have 30 soldiers. You have only 6. Numbers don't matter when the enemy can't hurt you," Rivera replied. His voice was calm and professional, like he was discussing routine security procedures instead of fighting for his life. The colonel was right. The Void Syndicate's numerical advantage meant nothing when their weapons could not penetrate human armor. Meanwhile, every shot fired by the humans found its target. The enemy's advanced armor, designed to defeat sophisticated attacks, provided almost no protection against simple bullets. Private Walsh discovered something else about the enemy equipment. When she ran out of ammunition for her rifle, she picked up a fallen Void Syndicate weapon and used it against its former owners. The energy weapon worked perfectly in her hands. "Sir, their gear functions normally once we capture it," she reported to Rivera. The electromagnetic pulse only affected equipment that was actively connected to galactic networks. This gave Rivera an idea. "All units, priority, target enemy weapons. We can use their advanced technology against them." The battle began to turn into a complete disaster for the Void Syndicate. Not only could they not harm the humans, but their own sophisticated weapons were being captured and used against them. Equipment that had taken decades to develop and cost fortunes to manufacture was now in the hands of soldiers wearing primitive armor. Nexus 7 watched his elite forces being systematically destroyed by 6 humans with old-fashioned equipment. His cybernetic implants, which connected him to the most advanced tactical computer networks in the galaxy, could not calculate a strategy to defeat such basic but effective opponents. "This is impossible," he said to himself. "We studied every species in the galaxy. We prepared for every possible threat. How did we miss something so obvious?" The answer was simple. The Void Syndicate, like all the other galactic species, had assumed that newer technology was always better than older technology. They had forgotten that sometimes the oldest solutions survived because they worked better than anything that came after them. As the fight continued, the delegates who had been cowering in the corner began to understand what they were witnessing. The humans had not brought museum pieces to a diplomatic meeting. They had brought weapons and armor that had been tested and refined through thousands of years of human warfare. Every ceramic plate had been designed to stop specific types of attacks. Every metal component had been shaped to deflect projectiles at precise angles. Every piece of cloth and padding had been positioned to absorb impact and distribute force across the wearer's body. The human equipment looked simple, but it was actually incredibly sophisticated. It just used sophistication based on physics and engineering instead of electronics and exotic energy. "They fight like we used to fight," General Ironheart observed, his mechanical voice filled with something that might have been respect. "Before we became dependent on our technology." "They fight like warriors," Commander Zask agreed. "Like beings who understand that survival depends on skill and preparation, not just superior equipment." The battle was nearly over. Most of the Void Syndicate soldiers lay dead or wounded throughout the hall. Their leader, Nexus 7, stood alone with only 2 remaining troops. The humans had suffered no serious injuries despite being heavily outnumbered. Rivera stepped forward, his rifle pointed at the enemy leader. Surrender, your soldiers are defeated and your plan has failed. Nexus 7 looked around at the destruction of his forces. The beings he had come to capture as helpless hostages were now free. The humans he had dismissed as primitive had proven to be the most dangerous opponents he had ever faced. This is not over, he said. The Void Syndicate will return with better weapons and new strategies. Maybe, Rivera replied. But next time, you'll know not to underestimate old-fashioned human engineering. The main hall of Concordia Station fell silent except for the soft groaning of wounded Void Syndicate soldiers. Smoke drifted from damaged walls where energy weapons had missed their human targets. The smell of burned ceramic and heated metal filled the air, evidence of the fierce battle that had just ended. Colonel Rivera kept his rifle pointed at Nexus 7, while his soldiers secured the remaining prisoners. The Void Syndicate leader stood among the bodies of his elite troops, his cybernetic face showing an expression that might have been shock or disbelief. Medical teams are on their way, Sergeant Martinez reported, checking on the alien delegates who had been caught in the crossfire. Several had minor injuries from flying debris, but none had been seriously hurt during the fighting. Ambassador Shun rose from behind the cover where she had taken shelter during the battle. Her diplomatic uniform was torn and dirty, but her eyes were bright with determination. She walked over to where the peace treaty documents lay scattered on the floor, many of them marked with burn holes and blast damage. The agreements are still readable, she announced to the assembled delegates. We can complete the signing ceremony as soon as we ensure everyone is safe. General Krikstal stared at the human soldiers with new understanding. His crystal armor lay in fragments around his feet, destroyed by weapons designed to defeat energy-based protection. But the humans still stood strong in their ceramic plates and metal components. I owe you an apology, Krikstal said to Colonel Rivera. We mocked your equipment without understanding its true purpose. Rivera lowered his weapon and turned to face the Zephyrian general. His armor showed dozens of burn marks and several cracked ceramic plates, but he had not been wounded during the entire battle. No apology needed, you judged based on appearance. Most beings do that. Commander Zask approached the group, his claws carefully sheathed to show he meant no threat. Your armor saved all our lives today. How is such protection possible? Experience, Rivera replied simply. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. Every piece of our equipment has been tested in real combat against real enemies. Corporal Thompson was helping treat wounded Void Syndicate soldiers, following the human military code that required care for all injured combatants. As she worked, she explained the principles behind their gear to curious alien observers. See, these ceramic plates, she said, pointing to her chest armor. They are designed to break in specific ways when hit by projectiles. The breaking absorbs energy that would otherwise transfer to the person wearing the armor. Trade Minister Velinox examined a piece of damaged ceramic with his 4 hands. The material actually becomes stronger by breaking? This seems contradictory to our understanding of protection. Not stronger, Thompson corrected. More effective. The broken pieces spread the impact across a larger area. Instead of one small point receiving all the damage, many points share the load. Private Walsh demonstrated how the overlapping armor plates work together. Each piece protects the gaps in other pieces. If one section fails, there are always backup layers underneath. No single hit can penetrate all the way through. The alien military leaders began to understand that human armor was not primitive at all. It was the result of centuries of refinement and improvement. Every detail had been tested in actual warfare and modified based on real combat experience. Your species has been at war for a very long time, observed General Ironheart, his mechanical voice carrying a note of respect. This equipment shows the wisdom gained from many conflicts. Ambassador Chun overheard this conversation and decided to share more information about human military history. Colonel Rivera's unit patches show service in conflicts across dozens of worlds. These are not diplomats pretending to be soldiers. They are warriors who learn to be diplomats. The delegates examined the small cloth badges attached to the human uniforms. Each patch represented participation in a different military campaign. Some showed combat on ice worlds where energy weapons failed in extreme cold. Others indicated service on planets where electromagnetic storms made advanced electronics useless. You have fought in environments where our technology would not function. Commander Zask realized. Your equipment works everywhere because it does not depend on perfect conditions. Exactly, Rivera confirmed. Energy shields fail when power is disrupted. Electronic systems stop working in electromagnetic fields. Biological armor dies in hostile environments. But ceramic, metal, and cloth work the same way, regardless of outside conditions. Nexus 7, still standing under guard, listened to this conversation with growing frustration. You speak of warfare as if it were science. Combat should be about strength and superiority, not careful planning and boring equipment. Chun turned to face the Void Syndicate leader. That attitude is exactly why your attack failed. You assumed that newer technology was automatically better technology. You never considered that sometimes older solutions work better than newer ones. The Void Syndicate believes in evolution through conflict, Nexus 7 replied. Only the strongest survive. Only the most advanced should rule. But you just lost to equipment you considered primitive, Rivera pointed out. What does that say? About your beliefs? The cyborg leader had no answer for this question. His entire worldview was based on the idea that advanced technology and superior firepower guaranteed victory. The humans had proven this assumption wrong using tools that most galactic species considered obsolete. Station security teams finally arrived in the main hall. Having worked their way through areas where the Void Syndicate had disabled monitoring systems, they stopped in amazement when they saw the results of the battle. 30 elite enemy soldiers defeated by 6 humans wearing armor that looked like it belonged in a museum. How did you know they were coming? Asked the station security chief, a tall being with blue skin and multiple eyes. We didn't know exactly when, Rivera admitted. But we knew they would try something. The Void Syndicate opposes peace agreements. We prepared for the most likely scenarios. Sergeant Martinez pulled out a datapad that had somehow survived the electromagnetic pulse attack. We hardened our essential equipment against EMP weapons. We studied the station layout. We positioned ourselves to respond quickly to threats from multiple directions. You planned for this specific attack? General Crickstel asked in amazement. We planned for the type of attack the Void Syndicate prefers, Chun explained. Disable advanced technology, then overwhelm opponents who have become dependent on that technology. It's a strategy that works against most galactic species. But not against humans, Commander Zask observed. Not against any species that remembers how to fight without depending completely on advanced systems, Rivera corrected. Humans just happen to still practice those skills. The peace treaty signing ceremony resumed 2 hours later, after medical teams had treated all the wounded and security forces had removed the prisoners. The documents were slightly damaged but still legally valid. Each delegate approached the signing table with a new understanding of the humans who had negotiated these agreements. The same species that had seemed backward and primitive had just saved the entire peace conference with their obsolete military equipment, the Zephyrian. Empire requests human military advisors, General Crickstel announced as he signed the treaty. We wish to learn about defensive systems that work without depending on advanced technology. The Saurian Republic makes the same request, Commander Zask added. Our soldiers have forgotten how to fight when their equipment fails. One by one, every delegation asked for human military assistance. Not because human technology was more advanced, but because human military philosophy was more practical and reliable. Ambassador Chun signed the human copy of the peace agreements with a smile. We will be happy to share our knowledge with all our new allies. But remember, the most important lesson is not about equipment. It's about preparation, training, and never assuming that complexity is better than simplicity. As the ceremony concluded, Colonel Rivera stood with his soldiers at attention. Their ceramic armor still showed the scars of battle, but they had proven something important to the galaxy. Sometimes the old ways survived because they were better than the new ways. The peace talks had succeeded, not just in ending wars between species, but in teaching all of them a valuable lesson about the dangers of depending too heavily on advanced technology. The humans, dismissed as primitive just days before, were now recognized as the most militarily practical species in the galaxy. And somewhere in the depths of space, other Void Syndicate commanders received reports about the failed attack and began to reconsider their assumptions about human capabilities. The species they had ignored as backward might actually be the most dangerous opponents they had ever faced.